Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being covered in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Jennifer Fumiko Cahill, Arts and Features Editor, and Linda Stansberry, Staff Writer at the North Coast Journal. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for joining us this week, Linda. This is really exciting. I remember speaking with you once before. It's been a while, so glad to have you back.
Happy to be back.
Right on. Why don't we just dive right in, and why don't you tell us about what's on the cover of the journal this week?
Well, this week I wrote a profile of a corporal with the Rio Dell Police Department. Her name is Crystal Landry, and she's been a corporal since 2021, graduated from Academy, the Police Academy at College of the Redwoods in 2018. And I used that profile and some incidents from ride-alongs that I went on with her to explore a little bit the lack of women in policing. So nationally, what we understand is, according to the 30 by 30 initiative, which is an initiative aimed at getting more women into the forces, is that women make up roughly 11% of uniformed or officers, sworn officers, and only 3% of leadership in the profession. So there is a movement to get more women into that profession, and I was curious personally, after having done ride-alongs with a few different agencies, how women might police differently than men, if they do, and what are the suppressive forces that might be keeping women from entering into that profession.
Gotcha. Just for clarification, that 30 by 30, is that a national initiative?
It is, yes.
Right on. Okay. So you got the opportunity to spend some time with Corporal Crystal Landry, and, in addition to just, I guess, wondering if there are differences or observational differences in how women might experience the policing interactions that they have with people, not just, the engagement, but also the feedback, et cetera. What did you find? What were some of the takeaways from the time that you spent with her?
Well, one of the things that many people who are looking at women in policing say is that women are socialized differently in terms of the social skills we develop, talking to people, social interactions, de-escalation tactics, all things that can come in handy on that particular job. I did see that being used in Corporal Landry's approach to talking with people, and I'm also always interested in what's going on in Rio Dell, which is such a unique little town in many ways. It's about 3,500 people, and it's one of the only towns in rural Humboldt County that has a dedicated police force. So Rio Dell, Ferndale, and Fortuna have their own standalone, police forces. Eureka has one, of course, and pretty much everywhere else in Humboldt County relies on the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office. So what I saw in Rio Dell is that officers who work there had a fairly strong rapport with people in Rio Dell. They were well known. It seemed, just from observation, seemed to be well liked. They knew the people they were talking to. Corporal Landry would drive through town. People would wave at her. She could stop. She could talk to people, talk to them by name. And from what she says and from what other people say, that really comes in handy when it comes to getting to the bottom of cases, because she's able to kind of know where the hot spots are, know who has relationships with who, and people want to talk to her.
Right on. So in this article, I know there's a couple angles here that we could pursue, but I think that really interesting. You mentioned how small the population was of Rio Dell. It's also geographically small. I think 2.5 square miles you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So you did a ride along and you were observing a particular incident. You don't have to get super into the details, but the idea is that in that experience, she wasn't just, calling people, but she was actually driving around and checking places and meeting with people. So I don't know if you want to compare that to what happened when she did an investigation in Eureka, where it expanded the scope, it expanded the familiarity. Any sort of contrast, the sort of closeness to Rio Dell versus how it got a little bit more expansive in Eureka when she traveled there.
Absolutely. And, with the caveat that this was just one officer, 2 nights, 8 hours total, maybe. So whether or not that could be used to draw generalizations about the process or her process overall, I can't say. In the case of policing in Rio Dell, Corporal Landry has spent a lot of time there, knows people there, seems to have a lot of rapport with the folks who live there. So she would drive around and show photos of a suspect to people on the street, see if they recognize them, help identify where they might be. And there's a lot of foot traffic in Rio Dell. There are a lot of people doing, shift work in that region. So more so than maybe Eureka or other places, you'll actually have people, at their houses or on the sidewalk during the day. Also a lot of retirees. So a lot of foot traffic, people she can talk to. And she has what seems to be a good reputation there, so people want to talk to her. In the case of the drive we did to Eureka to look for some stolen property, I would say that the officer in that case also drew on her social capital in a way that I didn't anticipate, in the sense that she sent photos of the suspect and their truck around to people that she'd gone to academy with or who she knew in law enforcement that might be able to help her out. So that, in addition to the be on the lookout alert, really helped her identify the person, the suspect, and identify where their vehicle and the stolen property might be. So, and that's something that we don't talk a lot about, or that you might not see in TV shows, social capital, social relationships, talking to people, asking around, and asking other people for help. Like, I think we have this kind of image of police officers and other people in those high stakes profession being lone wolves who, fix everything on their own. That didn't really seem to bear out from my experience.
Gotcha. So you mentioned this network of people that she's familiar with, and you also mentioned in part because of attending the academy. In your story, you talk a lot about the academy, and it sort of is a microcosm of what the community police forces are experiencing in terms of this mismatch between how many women, half the people are women, but yet not in the academy and not in the forces. You tell us a little bit about the academy, the kind of some insights you got from the people you spoke with about, the challenges of recruitment and retention, and also just making it more hospitable and I guess relevant place for people to train.
Right. So the people that I spoke with for this story include the current director of the academy, Mike Perkins, and the current chief of police in Rio Dell, Greg Allen, who also taught at the academy for a long time. So what they told me is, what we're seeing nationally is a general issue with recruiting people into law enforcement, and that seems to be due candidly to a lot of high profile national scandals, use of force incidents that people find disheartening and a disincentive to enter that profession. Also, police work is difficult. It requires people to work shifts, night shifts, times where people might want to be with their families, with their kids, at birthday parties. There's kind of what I'm seeing as a perpetuation of this cycle, because agencies are losing officers, so there are less people to call on, so officers are working more overtime, What that means for the academies is they actually have less officers to teach there. So I did not know this. They don't have a dedicated teaching staff. They hire people out of law enforcement to teach courses for the 6 months. So part-time teachers that are also currently working at a department. And right now there just aren't people with the kind of free time that they would need to teach a class there. So while the director of the academy, Mike Perkins, says he's very interested in adding a course specifically geared towards women who are interested in entering the profession, he simply doesn't have the personnel at this time to offer that. Now, the things that he would like to offer specifically to recruit more women and prepare them for this profession include some technical training to help them get through the physical component of the training, which includes a 6-foot wooden wall that Jennifer Cahill and I are going to at some point attempt to climb. That they have to jump up and cross as part of the final exam. So, I heard from Perkins and from Allen that, women traditionally don't have the same level of upper body strength as men, which makes them more likely to fail some of these physical requirements. But as Allen said, a lot of these physical requirements at this point are really outdated. He's not sure what bearing they have on, current police work. He said, talk to any officer now, ask him, when's the last time you had to jump a 6-foot wall, right? So that's one thing. Another thing that Allen said that I thought was really relevant is that that men in leadership positions are an important component of recruiting more women into the ranks. However, nationally, as I said earlier, only 3% of police leadership is comprised of women. Here in Humboldt County, we are about at that level. So I called around to the largest agencies, so Eureka Police Department, Arcata Police Department, Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, and the Fortuna Police Department. Now, if you exclude correctional officers, and sorry, female COs, you're doing a great job. Apparently, 25% of our COs are female. But if you exclude them, that leaves 5 women out of all of those agencies who currently work in leadership. So, chicken or egg. And I'm no expert on this subject by any means, but, it does appear that we're following, national trends in terms of the amount of women we have in leadership. So if women are going to be recruited out of the ranks, or recruited into the ranks by leadership, the current leadership is almost all male.
Just to follow up on that, I know you mentioned that in Eureka, Amber Cassetti is the first woman in the department to hold the rank of senior detective. Can you tell us a little bit, I don't know if you got a chance to speak with her, but can you tell us a little bit about her role more broadly in the community also?
I'm afraid I can't speak to that. I didn't interview her for this story, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but she is the head of the Eureka Police Officers Association and the first woman to hold that role as well.
Gotcha. So there's progress then. That's great. Well, cool. Thank you very much. I understand. And any other last thoughts on this before we speak to Jen today?
No, I just want to segue by encouraging everyone to read Jen's Seriously column in this week's issue. Page 21. It's excellent.
Right on. Well, I heard Jen's giggle there. Thank you so much, Linda. I look forward to speaking to you again next time we get a chance to connect. Jen, what's going on the arts and features beat, especially what got us that sinister giggle?
I will get to my sinister giggle, as you know, my weekly sinister giggle. But it is important that we note, congratulations, everybody who has been chomping at the bit for it and complaining about heat, which is hilarious in Humboldt. It's fall. Fall has happened. The pumpkin spice equinox is upon us, and we are now transitioning into chunky sweaters and boots. So congratulations, people who love fall. While you are adhering the fake spider webs to your bushes just after getting the real spider web sprayed off your windows, let's get ready for the season, because by the time that people are listening to this and whatnot, we're almost in October, right? We're like on the cusp of October. And I got to get ready to start fighting with people about candy corn any minute now. But Wendy Chan hey Wendy, has a really great recipe for people who cannot wait for pumpkin. You do not have to wait for the big, round, orange Charlie Brown pumpkin to enjoy pumpkin. In fact, Wendy has a recipe for young pumpkin dumplings, which I also think should be her rap name. So the young pumpkins, if you've ever grown pumpkins or, been to the pumpkin patch and you're choosing and looking at them on the vine, sometimes there are little ones off to the side. And a lot of times people who are growing pumpkins will snip away the small ones to let the big one thrive, right? To get that prize-winning pumpkin. But this little pumpkin that maybe will never find its destiny as a jack-o'-lantern could still be delicious. In fact, Wendy finds them sometimes more delicious. They are tender, almost kind of crunchy. They have usually a pale yellow interior and a green exterior. And she uses them for lots of different things. She uses the Japanese kabocha, which is actually, kabocha just means pumpkin in Japanese. So the pumpkin. And also there's another one that has a more difficult pronunciation for me. But she recommended a couple kinds that you could get possibly, this Jarrahdale pumpkins. She got hers at the Oriental Food and Spices Market over on Harris. But in fact, most of the time at pumpkin patches, they still have little ones. And she said sometimes she gets them for free. But remember, she's Wendy Chan. I don't know what powers she's wielding. I don't know what mind control she's using when she gets the pumpkin patch. But you can get these little pumpkins that are still growing and not quite mature. And they turn out great as like a stir fry ingredient. They turn out great for kind of the way that you might use other kinds of squash that are not quite so creamy as a mature pumpkin. And her recipe for young pumpkin dumplings involves making your own wrapper, but she offers the cheat code, which is to buy the wrappers and just roll them out a little bit thinner with a floured rolling pin. I am here to cheat with the pumpkin dumplings. And it's a mixture of grated pumpkin and meat and spices and wonderful things, and tucked inside and then pleated around. And remember, something really important for people who feel intimidated about dumplings. Dumplings can be ugly. You could just make your dumpling, and it does not have to be perfect. It does not have to look like it looked when you went to dim sum in San Francisco. It's okay. The ugly ones are also delicious, and you have to make about 1,000 ugly ones before they start looking good. So just jump in and make some ugly dumplings. So that's a great recipe. You should definitely check it out. More fall is coming in the garden section, the down and dirty column. Julia Graham-Witt has noticed that there are lots of fuzzy caterpillars, which I guess you call woolly bear here. David, do you know this term, woolly bear?
No, but I know the caterpillars, but
right?
I never called them that.
Back east, we just call them fuzzy caterpillars, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. My daughter used to be the queen of them. She could sort of summon them. But anyway, they let us know that it's fall, winter's coming, and clean up your garden. At least that's what this caterpillar told Julia Graham-Witt. And she has a really great piece that you should definitely not avoid. I know what it's like when somebody has like a list of, here's what you should do to clean your house. And I'm like, no, I can't look. I cannot look at another list of things to do. Look at this one because it includes things not to do. Like, don't rake away all your leaves. Leave some leaves. Partly this is to give cover and someplace for pollinators and critters to live. Also, it turns into mulch. You don't have to clean everything away. You don't have to deadhead every blooming plant in every plant that blooms, not just every blooming plant. Every plant in your garden, you can leave some. And even there are some stalks she talked about leaving behind, mostly out of laziness, that it turns out that woodpeckers love, because when you leave them to rot, the little critters live inside them and the woodpeckers get to feast. She does point out that you need to pick up fallen fruit. Do you want bears? Because this is how we get bears. Although she said that the cloven-footed hell spawn or devil spawn, which is what she calls deer, do clean up the fruit for her. So that's nice. It's the one benefit of having deer in the yard. No fan of Bambi is Julia Graham-Witt. But yeah, and she also talks about like rust is a fungal thing that happens and ruins your garlic that you should worry about. Yes. But little bites in some of your leaves that might just belong to leaf cutter bees, don't sweat it. Doesn't mean they're going to destroy your plants and you're helping out pollinators. So absolutely take a look at this. And it's at least, if nothing else, it's going to make you feel better about 30% of what you're not doing in your garden.
Well, interestingly, too, she mentioned some things. We don't have to get super into it. People can check it out. We'll leave a little for the reader. But some things that grow well in the winter that you can plant, and also trees and shrubs.
Yeah, if you are a person who is still not done with kale, bless you, bless your heart. If you're still not done with kale, kale is a thing that you can plant in the winter, fall. It's fall. I'm skipping ahead to winter. Kale, collards, lettuces, peas, broccoli, and as she put it, the very important garlic. Also important pre-Halloween.
Well, right on. So that leads us to what Linda, the article that Linda recommended, and also that I guess foreshadowed that it will make us laugh. I absolutely love this style of writing that you've got. I'm a huge fan of yours. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that piece?
Thank you. I'm pretty sure not everyone will love it, but that's okay. So I am not a fan of baby showers. I'm sorry. If I went to your baby shower, yours was the only one I ever loved, okay? But these days, given that Roe v. Wade is well and truly dead, and we're looking at abortion bans popping up, trigger laws, all kinds of things happening, people selling out their friends and neighbors who are seeking abortions in order to get bounty money. All these things are happening. It's hard to get excited about being pregnant when you know that there are possible legal ramifications, even for women who miscarry or have stillbirths. Some of them are being charged with murder, depending on where you live. So it's really hard for me to imagine throwing a baby shower. So I came up with a different idea, which is a forced birth shower. How do you celebrate for somebody who does not want to have this baby, but is legally obligated to because of theocratic, oppressive laws passed in your state? Congratulations, California, for enshrining reproductive rights into our state constitution. However, our state law. However, as we know, our friends, neighbors, families, people we care about and love don't end at the California border. And people everywhere are suffering. So I had some ideas of what you could do to do fun invitations, like a terse email to your friends, inviting them to the party saying, Casey is pregnant and the only thing we can do is buy presents and eat a deli tray at my place. Bring liquor. There are some ideas about how to decorate since you don't really want to do storks and everything. But you can do, for example, balloons with the faces of Supreme Court justices who helped bring down your reproductive rights. And I make what I feel is a strong case for the anatomically correct birth cake. Have you ever seen this? You probably haven't, Dave, because you've been spared as a straight man. But you can go to a shower and occasionally, if you haven't chosen friends well, end up sitting in front of a cake that looks like a baby coming out of a woman's body.
Thankfully, I missed that one in my travels.
It's a lot of fondant and a lot of nerve. But I feel like for people who say like, oh, what's the big deal? You just carry a baby for, 40 weeks and then you give birth to it and then you just put it up for adoption and you're fine. You go on back to your life. Let me tell you that birth is not that way. And the tax on your life for being pregnant, carrying a baby, making a life, is heavy. And so I described maybe a cake that would show, I don't know, an episiotomy or something terrifying like that. In fact, do you want to see my cesarean scar right now? Is this a bad time?
It's probably bad.
It's probably a bad time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just sort of had some fun with it, but it is it's a grim prospect looking at how many people's lives are being ruined right now and how many people are being put in danger with pregnancies that are not viable and not healthy for them. And so, I turned to humor to find my way through it. But I'm hoping it will make some folks think seriously about the issue of forced birth, because that's not what this is. It's not, we're not really looking at a pro-life situation, because then we'd be looking at how to keep people healthy. We are looking at forced birth.
Well, thanks, Jen. I wish it wasn't the case, but laughter is the best medicine, and I think that the irony is seeping out of this article, and it's drawing attention to a lot of contradictions and absurdities. So for that, we appreciate you.
Take care of your friends.
Yeah. Linda and Jen, thank you so much. This is about all the time we have this week. Linda, again, I'm not sure when I'm going to see you again, but we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
That's about going to do it for us this week. North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick one up, stay informed. Also available 24/7 online, so you can check them out anytime. Thanks everybody out there for listening, and take care until we connect again next week. Bye, guys.
See you next week.